I'm Elena, 29 years old, and last Saturday, my mother stood up at my brother's engagement party and told 150 guests that I was the family's biggest disappointment. She said it while raising a champagne glass, while wearing jewelry I secretly bought her, in a house I secretly saved from foreclosure. The whole room turned to look at me. I could feel their judgment, their whispers, the familiar weight of being the invisible daughter. And then I did something I'd never done before. I smiled. I pulled out my phone. And I read 4 sentences that made my mother drop her glass. Before I continue, if you're connecting with this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Now, let me take you back 7 years to the night everything started. 7 years ago, I was 22, fresh out of nursing school, working double shifts at Boston General just to cover my student loans. I thought I was struggling. I had no idea what struggling really meant. My family looked perfect from the outside. Dad, Thomas Ashford, was a mid-level manager at an insurance company. Mom, Patricia, was a part-time real estate agent who spent more time on her appearance than her listings. And then there was my younger brother Kevin, 19, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. He'd just started at a prestigious business school in New York. Full ride, my parents told everyone, their pride and joy. The favoritism wasn't new. When I graduated nursing school, my parents took me to dinner at Applebee's. Mom complained about the prices the whole time. When Kevin got his acceptance letter, they threw him a backyard party, catered, 50 people, a live DJ. Kevin has so much potential, Mom explained when I asked about the difference. He needs encouragement. You've always been so independent, Elena. You don't need us. I told myself she was right. Kevin was the baby. The star. I was the reliable one. The one who figured things out alone. That was my role. I didn't know that in just 3 weeks, a phone call would change everything. A call that would turn me from the invisible daughter into something else entirely, someone they would spend the next 7 years pretending didn't exist. The first sign came 2 weeks before that call. I was visiting home for Sunday dinner when I noticed the stack of medical bills on the kitchen counter. I caught a glimpse before Mom swept them away. Oncology Center, $47,000. My blood went cold. Mom, what are those bills? Nothing. She shoved them into a drawer. Just some routine tests. $47,000 isn't routine. Her face tightened. Elena, this is not your concern. That night, I cornered my father in the garage. He looked smaller than I remembered, older, defeated. Dad, what's going on with Mom? He was quiet for a long moment. Then his shoulders dropped. Stage 2 breast cancer. The world tilted. Why didn't anyone tell me? Your mother didn't want to worry you. Or Kevin. He's got school to focus on. Even then, even facing cancer, I wasn't important enough to inform. But Kevin's finals mattered more than telling me my mother might die. What's the treatment plan? Dad's voice cracked. That's the problem, Elena. Our insurance won't cover most of it. The specialized treatment she needs costs over $200,000. We've already taken out a second mortgage on the house, but it's not enough. He looked at me with eyes I'd never seen before. Desperate, broken. We don't know what to do. I lay awake that night doing the math. I made $52,000 a year. After rent, loans, and basic expenses, I had maybe $700 left each month. What they needed was impossible. But the next morning, I called my bank anyway. I took out every dollar from my savings. I applied for a personal loan. I picked up extra shifts, night shifts, weekend shifts, holiday shifts. I stopped eating out. I canceled my gym membership. I moved from my small apartment to a tiny room in a shared house. 2 weeks later, I set up an automatic transfer. Every month, $2,800 would flow from my account into a medical fund I'd created. My parents didn't know it was me. I'd arranged it through the hospital's financial assistance program, marked as an anonymous donor. I wanted to help. I didn't need credit. That was my first mistake. Let me tell you what 7 years of anonymous looks like. I worked 70-hour weeks. I went from floor nurse to charge nurse to nurse manager. Every promotion meant a bigger paycheck and a bigger transfer. The amount grew. $2,000, $800 became $3,200, then $3,500, then $4,000, as Mom's treatment continued and new expenses emerged. The cancer went into remission after 2 years, but the bills didn't stop. Physical therapy, follow-up scans, medications. Then Dad lost his job during the restructuring wave of 2021. I started covering the mortgage too. I lived in that same tiny room for 5 years. No vacations, no new clothes. I drove a car with 180,000 miles on it. I ate rice and beans 3 times a week. My college loans went unpaid. My credit score tanked. And my parents? They never missed a beat. Kevin got a new BMW when he graduated, a down payment for his Manhattan apartment, a Rolex for his 25th birthday. The Christmas I couldn't afford to come home, they took him to the Bahamas. When I did visit, Mom would look at my worn shoes and sigh. "Elena, why don't you take better care of yourself? Kevin always looks so put together." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her exactly why my shoes were worn, but I'd made my choice. Anonymous meant anonymous. The math was simple. 7 years. 84 months. Average of $3,400 per transfer. Over $285,000. That didn't count the $30,000 from my initial savings or the $15,000 personal loan I was still paying off. I saved my mother's life. I saved my parents' house, and not once did they say thank you. How could they? They didn't know. And the one person who did know, the hospital financial coordinator I'd confided in, had long since moved to another state. I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't doing it for recognition. I was doing it because it was right. I was lying to myself. The breaking point came 6 months ago. I'd been dating Marcus for a year. He was a physical therapist, kind and patient, and completely baffled by how I lived. "Elena," he said one night, looking at my bank statement I'd accidentally left open. "You make 6 figures now. Why do you have $800 in savings?" I couldn't answer. "You work constantly. You never take time off. You live like you're broke." He took my hands. "I love you, but I don't understand what you're running from. Or running toward." He was right. I was 29 years old with nothing to show for 7 years of sacrifice. No house, no investments, no retirement. Everything had gone to them. That night, I finally told Marcus the truth. All of it. The cancer, the bills, the transfers, the silence. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that broke me open. "Elena, you've been buying your parents' love, and they don't even know they owe you." The final blow came 2 weeks later. Mom called, breathless with excitement. "Kevin's engaged. To Ashley, the lawyer's daughter. We're throwing them the most beautiful engagement party. 200 guests at the country club. Your father and I are paying for everything." Paying for everything. With what money? The house was still mortgaged. Dad was working part-time at Home Depot. But sure, they were paying for everything. I felt something shift inside me. Something that had been holding on for 7 years finally started to crack. "That's wonderful," I said, my voice steady. "When is it?" "March 15th. It's going to be spectacular. Kevin deserves the best." And there it was. Kevin deserves the best. Not Elena, who'd given everything. Kevin, who'd given nothing. Something had to change. I just didn't know yet how much. Kevin's engagement party was everything my parents dreamed of. Ashley came from old money. Her father owned half the commercial real estate in Rhode Island. She was polished and beautiful and looked at Kevin like he'd invented sunlight. I wanted to be happy for him. Part of me was. But mostly I felt hollow, watching my parents parade around taking credit for a life they hadn't actually built. The venue was Ocean View Country Club, the most exclusive in Connecticut. Crystal chandeliers, white roses on every table, a 12-piece orchestra playing softly in the corner. My parents had pulled out all the stops. We spared no expense, Mom told anyone who would listen. Our Kevin deserves perfection. I finally asked the question that had been burning in my throat for months. "Mom, where is the money coming from?" Silence. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Dad works part-time. The house is still mortgaged. I know your real estate business has been slow." Her face hardened. That's none of your business, Elena. We've worked hard our whole lives. We're allowed to celebrate our son. Which child have you worked hard for? She stared at me like I'd slapped her. Then she walked away. That night, I made a decision. I drove to my parents' house when they weren't home. I still had a key. I found what I was looking for in Dad's office. Bank statements, medical bills, mortgage documents. And there it was, buried in a folder labeled hospital. A single spreadsheet tracking all the anonymous payments over 7 years. Dad had tried to figure out where the money came from. He'd even noted some theories. Church fund, he'd written. Insurance error, community program. Not once had he written Elena. I took photos of everything. Then I called the one person I knew could help me. Dr. Sarah Chen was the hospital financial coordinator who'd set up my anonymous payments 7 years ago. She'd since become the chief financial officer at Boston General. We'd kept in touch sporadically. Elena, her voice was warm but cautious. I was wondering when you'd call. I need your help. I need documentation of every payment I've made. Every transfer, every date, every amount. You know that's technically confidential. Sarah, I've donated over $300,000 through your hospital's program. I think I've earned some transparency. She was quiet. Then she sighed. You're right. And honestly, I've always felt uncomfortable knowing what you sacrificed without anyone acknowledging it. She pulled up the records. Complete documentation. Dates, amounts, routing numbers, everything. Would you be willing to verify this if someone asked? Verify what? That I'm the anonymous donor who saved my mother's life and my parents' house. A pause. Elena, what are you planning? I'm not sure yet. But I'm done being invisible. 1 week before the engagement party, I got an unexpected call. Elena, it's Aunt Caroline. Aunt Caroline was my father's older sister. The black sheep of the family who'd moved to California 20 years ago after a falling out with my grandparents. She was the only person who'd ever seemed to see through the family's perfect facade. I heard about the party, she said. Your mother called to brag. 200 guests, country club, string orchestra. I said nothing. Elena, honey, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Where is that money really coming from? My throat tightened. Because I know your parents, she continued. I know they nearly lost the house. I know about your mother's cancer. I know your father hasn't had stable work in years. She paused. And I know you, sweetheart. I've watched you disappear into your work while Kevin gets everything handed to him. For the first time in 7 years, I felt tears threatening to fall. You don't have to tell me details. But if what I suspect is true, I want you to know something. What? I see you. I've always seen you. Her words hit me like a wave. I took a shaky breath. How did you know? Because I was the responsible daughter once, too. I know what it feels like to give everything and get nothing back. We talked for 2 hours. By the end, I had something I hadn't had in years. An ally. Now I want to pause here. If you're wondering what I did at that party, trust me, I wasn't sure either. But I'm curious. What would you do? Would you confront them publicly or handle it privately? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to find out what happened, keep watching. The Ocean View Country Club looked like something from a dream. Chandeliers cast golden light across marble floors. Roses cascaded from every surface. Waiters in crisp white moved through the crowd with champagne on silver trays. 150 guests mingled in their finest clothes. Ashley's parents, dignified and reserved. My parents' social circle, all designer dresses and practiced smiles. Marcus squeezed my hand as we walked in. You okay? Ask me again in an hour. I'd chosen my outfit carefully. A simple black dress, elegant but understated. I wasn't here to compete with anyone. I was here to finally be seen. The first person I spotted was Aunt Caroline. She'd flown in from California without telling my parents. She winked at me from across the room. Elena, you actually came? Kevin approached with Ashley on his arm. He hugged me like we were close. We weren't. Of course I came. It's your engagement party. Mom wasn't sure you'd show. You know how you are? How I am. Like missing family events had ever been my choice. The orchestra played. The champagne flowed. Everything was perfect. Then my mother clinked her glass. May I have everyone's attention? The room quieted. 150 faces turned toward her. My mother stood at the head table in a silk dress that cost more than my monthly rent. Dad beside her, beaming. The picture of success. Tom and I want to thank you all for being here tonight. 26 years ago, we were blessed with a son who has brought nothing but pride to this family. I felt Marcus's hand find mine under the table. Kevin, she continued, you've exceeded every expectation. And Ashley, we couldn't be happier to welcome you into our family. Polita applause. Ashley smiled gracefully. Then Mom's voice took on a new tone. Some of you know that our family faced challenges these past few years. She dabbed at her eyes dramatically. My health scare. Financial difficulties. But we persevered. As a family, Tom and I worked so hard to rebuild, to save, to give our son the life he deserves. The crowd murmured sympathetically. And tonight, she raised her glass higher. We celebrate not just Kevin's engagement, but our family's triumph. Everything you see here, we made happen, through hard work and sacrifice. Something cold settled in my stomach. She wasn't done. Of course, not everyone in our family contributed equally. She let out a small laugh. But that's all right. Some people just aren't built for sacrifice. They take and take without giving back. Her eyes found mine across the room. Isn't that right, Elena? The room went silent. You know, she continued, her smile sharp now. When I was sick, when we almost lost our house, Elena never offered to help. Not once. She was too busy with her own life, too selfish to think about family. I could feel 150 people staring at me. The whispers starting, the judgment forming. That's why Kevin has always been our priority, Mom finished triumphantly. Because he's the one who truly deserves it. Unlike some people, she waited for me to crumble, to cry, to leave, but I didn't crumble. I pulled out my phone. Actually, I said, my voice cutting through the silence, I have something to add to that toast. Every eye in the room locked onto me. I stood up slowly. Thank you, Mom, for that speech. I especially loved the part about how I never helped. That was creative. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. But since we're sharing tonight, I have some information that might interest everyone. I opened my email and found the document Sarah Chen had sent me. For the past 7 years, I began, an anonymous donor has been paying for Mom's cancer treatment, Dad's mortgage, and various family expenses. The total amount is $330,000. Gasps echoed through the room. I've always wondered who that generous soul was. My voice was steady, so I did some investigating. Elena, my father's voice was sharp. This is inappropriate. No, Dad. What's inappropriate is Mom standing up here claiming you sacrificed and worked hard when you haven't made a single payment toward your own house in 3 years. The color drained from his face. I held up my phone. This is documentation from Boston General's Financial Services Department. Every payment, every date, every routing number, all traced back to one account. I looked directly at my mother. Mine. The silence was deafening. $330,000? I continued. That's 7 years of my life. No vacations, no savings, no future. Living in a room the size of this tablecloth while Kevin got BMWs and Bahamas vacations and Rolex watches. Kevin's face had gone pale. Ashley was staring at him like she didn't recognize him. I turned to the crowd. My mother just called me selfish. Said I never helped. Said I don't understand sacrifice. I let those words hang. I've been sacrificing since I was 22 years old. I just never told anyone. Because I thought family meant not keeping score. My mother's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. I was wrong. I looked at her. Really looked at her. You kept score. Every single day. You just never counted me. From the corner of my eye, I saw Aunt Caroline stand up. Patricia. Her voice cut through the tension. Is this true? Has Elena been supporting you this entire time while you treated her like nothing? My mother's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. I have 4 more sentences, I said quietly. 4 sentences I've been waiting 7 years to say. The room held its breath. First, I'm done paying. The automatic transfers end today. My father grabbed the table for support. Second, You have 6 months before the bank starts asking questions about your mortgage. I suggest you start planning. My mother let out a sob. Third, every person in this room now knows the truth about who really kept this family alive. So the next time you want to call someone selfish, remember this moment. I picked up my clutch. And fourth, I'm not your invisible daughter anymore. I never deserved to be invisible, and I'm done pretending I did. I turned and walked toward the door. Marcus was already there, holding my coat. Behind me, I heard chaos erupting. My father's voice raised in denial, my mother's sobbing, Ashley demanding answers from Kevin. The whispers had become a roar. Aunt Caroline caught up with us in the parking lot. She pulled me into a hug. I've waited 20 years for someone in this family to finally tell the truth. I held on to her, shaking. Does it always hurt this much? Yes. She pulled back and looked at me. But it stops hurting eventually, and then it starts to heal. Marcus drove us home in silence. When we got to my apartment, he made tea while I stared at my phone. It was exploding. 17 missed calls from my parents. Dozens of texts. Voicemails I couldn't bring myself to play. The texts ranged from desperate to furious. Elena, please call us. We need to explain. How could you humiliate us like that? You've destroyed this family. I turned off my phone. 3 days later, Kevin called Marcus's phone. Elena, I need to talk to you. I almost didn't answer, but something in his voice made me pause. He sounded broken. I didn't know. His words came out rushed. I swear, Elena, I never knew where the money came from. Mom and Dad always said they had it handled. That they'd been saving. That the church helped. I believe you, Kevin. And I did. Kevin had been raised in a bubble so complete he never thought to question it. He was a product of their favoritism, not the architect. Ashley's parents want to postpone the engagement party. Kevin's voice cracked. They're not sure they want their daughter marrying into our family anymore. I'm sorry. Don't be. They're right to be concerned. I've been thinking about everything. All those years you visited in worn-out clothes. All those times Mom made comments about how you couldn't get your life together. I never questioned it. I never once thought to ask if you were okay. You were young. I'm not young anymore. And I should have seen it. Something shifted between us in that conversation. Not forgiveness exactly, but the beginning of understanding. The fallout spread faster than I expected. 150 guests had witnessed my revelation. 150 people went home and told their spouses, their friends, their book clubs. Within a week, my parents had become the talk of their entire social circle. Aunt Caroline called with updates. Your mother tried to host her women's Bible study yesterday. 3 people showed up. The others made excuses. I didn't feel triumphant. Just tired. Your father got confronted at the golf club. He resigned from the membership committee. 6 weeks after the party, my parents put their house up for sale. They couldn't afford the mortgage without my transfers. They moved into a small condo on the other side of town. Kevin and Ashley postponed their wedding indefinitely. Not canceled, just paused. Ashley's parents needed time to process everything. The engagement party at the country club became a footnote. A smaller celebration at Ashley's parents' home took its place 6 months later. I wasn't invited. That was okay. I didn't need to be. What I needed was to rebuild. For the first time in 7 years, I opened a savings account that stayed positive. I paid off my student loans. I started therapy. I bought new shoes. These sound like small things. They weren't. My therapist helped me understand patterns I'd never seen before. You developed a people-pleasing pattern, she explained. You equated being needed with being loved. When your parents showed you that love was conditional, you tried to meet those conditions through sacrifice. And it didn't work. It was never going to work. She leaned forward. You can't earn love from people who don't know how to give it. But you can learn to stop paying a price that was never fair. I thought about that a lot. Marcus and I moved in together 3 months after the party. A real apartment. 2 bedrooms, a balcony, a kitchen where we cooked dinner together instead of reheating rice alone. The first night, we sat on the balcony watching the city lights. Regrets? He asked. I thought about it, only that I waited so long. My relationship with my parents became what it needed to be. Distant, cordial, Honest. Mom called on my birthday for the first time in years. Elena, I want to apologize. I listened. I didn't know how much you'd given. I should have asked. I should have seen you. It was progress. Not enough to fix everything, but enough to leave the door open. Why, Mom? I finally asked the question I'd held for years. Why was Kevin always more important? She was quiet for a long time. Because Kevin was easy. Her voice was small. He never needed anything from me emotionally. You always needed more. You felt more. And I didn't know how to handle it. So I pulled away. It wasn't an excuse, but it was an explanation. I hope you find what you need, Mom. I hope you do too, Elena. We hung up. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a start. Kevin and I grew closer in the months that followed. He called regularly, asked questions about my life that no one had ever asked before. I'm applying for a new job, he told me one day. Something that's actually mine, not something Dad arranged or Mom bragged about. Something I earned. I'm proud of you. I'm trying to be someone worth being proud of. I look in the mirror these days and finally recognize the person staring back. Not invisible. Not the forgotten daughter. Not the one who gives until there's nothing left. Just Elena, 29 years old, building a life that's actually mine. After everything settled, I spent a lot of time thinking about why. Why did my parents treat me the way they did? Were they evil? Were they intentionally cruel? My therapist helped me understand something important. People rarely see themselves as villains. They're just people shaped by their own fears, their own wounds, their own limitations. My mother grew up poor. Appearance was everything because it was the only thing that separated her family from the neighbors who looked down on them. When I was born difficult, colicky, needing constant attention, I became a reminder that perfection wasn't possible. Kevin came later, easy, smiling, golden, the child she'd imagined having. My father was a man who measured worth by success. When his career stalled, when his investments failed, when his body weakened, he clung to Kevin as proof that he'd done something right. I was too much like him, a reminder of every way he'd fallen short. None of this excuses them. Understanding isn't forgiving. But it helped me stop asking the question that had haunted me my whole life. What did I do wrong? The answer was nothing. I did nothing wrong. I was born to people who weren't equipped to love me the way I needed. That was their failure, not mine. If you're watching this and something resonates, if you recognize yourself in my story, I want to tell you something. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Your worth isn't measured by what you sacrifice. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's survival. And silence isn't peace. Sometimes it's just a cage you build around yourself, waiting for someone else to notice you're trapped. Here's the truth. They're not going to notice. They're not going to rescue you. They're not going to suddenly see what you've given. You have to rescue yourself. It will hurt. Walking away from people you love, even when they're hurting you, that hurts. Choosing yourself when you've spent your whole life choosing everyone else, that hurts too. But staying hurts more. I know. I did it for 7 years. So, if you're in that place right now, wondering if you deserve better, let me answer that for you. Yes, you do. Not because of what you give. Not because of what you sacrifice. Not because someone finally notices. You deserve better just because you're you. And the moment you start believing that, really believing it, everything changes. I'm not angry at my parents anymore. I'm not trying to punish them. I'm just finally, for the first time in my life, putting myself first. It's not revenge. It's reclaiming myself. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story touched you in any way, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment. Share your own experience. I read every single one. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It means more than you know. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.